On the same storm that came through and tore down the old tobacco barn, it actually tore this old log. I call it a log cabin, but it actually was a log barn, a horse barn. They over the years they had built stalls around it and sided it. And they were storing lumber underneath it. There's what's left after the storm. It's the rest of the barn. Took all the roof and stuff off of it. But so I had the opportunity to. This lady that I cleaned up the mess for, I actually wound up buying these logs. I'm just going to store them and see what we have, what we can do with them. Who knows? It's going to take somebody smarter than me, and maybe some of you guys can tell me why they cut these logs out of three sides. There's the front of the barn, there's the loft door, and all of that. But all three other sides, they cut they cut a log out, as you can see all the way through it, and then put blocks over it. I'm assuming because they put so they could frame to it on the outside. But why they cut those logs and did that, somebody else is going to have to tell me. And here on the front of the barn, that's the only place that they boarded right to it. And of course the paint came through, which won't hurt anything. You just turn the log around on the other side and it'll be fine. But you can see at the top, those notches, that's the loft in that barn. And as we come around looking at the north side of this thing, there's a good example of what they did. They cut out a good log in the inside. It's about halfway up between the floor and the ceiling of this barn. But I just don't know. I don't know what it was for.
6.
And this is where we started taking it down log at a time. The wind took the rest of it off. We picked up a couple of logs on the outside, but the old log cabin itself withstood all of the storm, but had a lot of cracks in it, I guess. I don't know, but we don't claim to know what we're doing. We just decided to take it apart, and we took it apart the best we could. And I wound up making two piles, a good pile and a bad pile. So at least when I store them, they're stored good pile and bad pile, and you can still get some good stuff out of some of the old rough ones. But as you can look around and see, a lot of them are pretty bad shape. But there's actually some good logs in this thing as well. So I'm just taking a stab at doing this, and we'll see what happens. The people on the farm this was a shed they had built on behind this cabin, and they had took old fence boards and sawed them and stored them in there, and ultimately wound up selling them board at a time. But we had to work around them because I didn't want the boards. And anyway, it all worked out. We just had to work around those silly boards. And as we took this thing down, all we knew to do was just go around and around the building and take them down as they put them up. And I thought maybe they might have spikes or pegs or something down through them, but there was nothing. They just sitting on top of each other. And I guess that's the normal thing they did when they built those things back in the day. I don't have a clue how old it is, but it's not a spring chicken anyway. If you'll notice, on the third log down, you can see those notches. Well, that's the actual
Taking them down one at a time.
flooring for the loft in this thing. The timbers went all the way across, and then they just had rough sawed boards on top for the flooring. But that's what that is, and when we got to that point, we just had to pull them loose and let the top of it fall in.
Add another thing to our list. Barnwood builders. They're working on it.
right there you can see we have taken most of the log that held the loft up, but the loft, some of it's still laying there, and it was full of junk and everything else, just like it's like the whole barn had been used for scrap for years and years. But anyway, there it is.
Got the big wooden peg holding that one. There's what's left. There's what's left.
There's the bark off of some of those logs. They all seem to be the same kind. And then here are stacks after we took them down and stacked them up in piles of goods and bads and longs and shorts, and did the best we could do so we could load them. Actually, I loaded the bad ones first, and then these are all the better of the logs. And here we go. We've got them in my shed, stacked the goods on the left and the bad ones on the right, and some of those things on the top were come out of that old barn that we tore down. We just had to save those too. So, there again, we got projects ahead of us. Thank you.